The Queen's death has reignited debate around Australia becoming a republic, but a new poll has revealed support for the monarchy has actually grown since Her Majesty passed away. Now, to discuss that and plenty of other things, I'm joined by Prue McSween and Carolyn de Russo. Firstly, Prue, what did you make of the funeral last night?
I thought it was magnificently so. In fact, I'm bleary-eyed because I think I've been staying up every night till the wee hours of the morning because it's such compelling viewing. And it's compelling because what we're seeing is, apart from history, you know, the traditions and the heritage, and a window into the comfort of having someone who wasn't just the monarch and a diplomat, but also almost like a grandmother to us all. And the fact that she was a constant, and in this world where everybody wants to trade everything in, it's a disposable world, it's a world of cancellation. I think this is why we have all found this so compelling and touching. And I think while it was the funeral of the Queen, I think it's the death knell or the killing off of the Republic for many years, because when you look at the crowds, you look at the different generations, you look at the reception that Charles has got, then I really think, you know, everybody, all the Republicans were counting on the fact that with the Queen's demise, you know, the Republican stance would grow, but in fact I think it hasn't at all.
Carolyn, your thoughts on the funeral?
Well, I obviously watched it last night, and I just thought it was so dignified. It was so dignified, it was really elegant, and it was perfectly executed. And anyone who's organised any sort of function, you know how much work is involved. But to pull something like that off in such a short space of time, hats off to Norfolk, because he did an absolutely fabulous job. But I agree with Prue more broadly. What the death of the Queen has allowed a lot of people to do is reflect. And to reflect on not only her life and her service, but where the monarchy actually fits in and the good that it does do. So the Republican movement, fair enough, you want to have a head of a state or a sovereign that's Australian, that's fine. But what's the net benefit to the Australian people? How does it make our lives materially better? And the Republican movement has never been in a more feckless position as far as that is concerned. Because if we end up with a president who is politicised, well then who's going to be doing all that public work? Correct, but who's going to do all of that apolitical public good type work that the Queen did, and which Paul Keating was so elegant in his statement in capturing?
All right, Prue and Carolyn, I am going to ask you about my favourite subject. You would have heard my opener about the Greens. I think they're finished. I think their behaviour during this particular last 10 or 12 days has been appalling. I think they polarise the country. I think they're divisive. I think they're a disgrace. And I think they've done the Republican cause no amount of hurt, or a heap of amount of hurt. Prue, you first. Surely people who are now switching to the Greens, to vote for the Greens, they have to understand what policies these people are putting out there. They're rubbish.
Absolute rubbish. And it's interesting because we know that, you know, these university Marxists, the people, the younger generation, you know, until they got a brain installed, actually were going towards the Greens, and that's where their major vote was. And then they had the doctors' wives set, you know, the ones who were very comfortable, didn't have to worry about the cost of petrol. Yeah, exactly. So, but what they've demonstrated is their lack of empathy, their lack of understanding, lack of respect. And really, these people are fleas, and Bant is just full of banter that is mindless. You know, I just think the man is tragic, really, and very sad, but it just shows you how low our level of political class is. You know, if people like Bant and some of the other charmers within the Greens party can get in, then really we've got to question our system, haven't we, and our choices.
And Carolyn, the Victorian Greens, now they say they're going to move a motion in Parliament down there calling on the Andrews government to immediately reverse what they're calling a disrespectful decision to rename a Melbourne hospital after Queen Elizabeth II. They say changing the name from Maroondah Hospital, which is an Aboriginal word, will make Aboriginal Victorians feel unsafe. Your thoughts?
I'm not sure how they got to unsafe. Look, people might disagree with it, but let's not pretend that that is some sort of violence. But you know, when you spend your time in a small enough circle with enough perpetually aggrieved people, you do end up thinking like that. And Gleeson, I'm not sure necessarily whether the Greens are finished, but what is really important going forward is that when we're getting towards elections in particular, that we, particularly in the Conservative side of politics, you know, we differentiate the Bob Brown type Greens, the environmentalist type Greens, from the party of protest and the party of anarchy that we have now. So it's not just enough for the Libs to go after Labor, they need to go after the Greens as well. Because I've stood on polling booths and you see a lot of, you know, the treetop Tories coming in and voting Greens because apparently they love their grandchildren more than anyone else on the planet, Gleeso. But it's this sort of behaviour that is perpetually divisive, that is totally disrespectful, that needs to be understood as what the Greens actually are, and not this party of the lovey-dovey. Correct.
Yeah, have a look at their policies. Have a look at their policies before you vote for them. All right, now New South Wales will introduce no body, no parole laws as early as tomorrow. Now, if passed, convicted murderers would be ineligible for parole as long as they keep the location of their victims a secret. These laws they were thrust into the spotlight by the Chris Dawson murder case in which he was convicted of killing his wife Lynette in 1982. Ladies, let's kick off with you, Prue. Groundbreaking. Are we happy with this?
Oh, 100%, but I'm also annoyed that it hasn't been brought in here in New South Wales a lot sooner. It's a no-brainer, and I don't think it almost goes far enough, not just parole. I think they should get mandatory extra sentences if they don't actually identify where they've buried the body. I think that when you look at the victims' families and the hell that they go through, that the fact that they can't put their child, their loved one, whatever, to rest is just so sad. So come on, Dominic, get your act together. Just shows you how archaic some of our laws are. You know, Caro would have a better idea than I do, but you know, it just astounds me that this is not in place.
Carolyn?
So as you can see from my background, I am skylarking in New South Wales, but we already have these laws in Western Australia, and they are there for that closure for the victim's family. You would have seen recently the conviction of the Claremont serial killer. 2 of the 3 bodies have been found, and there was that one circumstance where they weren't able to convict on Sarah Spears because her body was not able to be found. The only thing with these laws is there is extra difficulty in circumstances where you end up having wrongful convictions. And look, that doesn't happen an awful lot, but there are some examples of where that has happened in the past. So where you have the no body, no parole thing, that is just adds extra difficulty in relation to acquitting those people who are wrongfully convicted. But otherwise, I do totally agree with Prue. Look, it is quite the incentive if you want to get out of prison.
Quickie, 30 seconds each. Now, the French Cycling Federation have sent a squad to the World Championships in Australia. They put the males in business class and the females in economy. Prue, 30 seconds. What do you think?
Well,
Shouldn't laugh.
It's what happens in sport, doesn't it? You know, the blokes are always, it's a blokey culture. And these blokes probably, you know, are feeling sore after shaving their legs. Who knows?
Carolyn, the French, they're good at a lot of things, but not putting their females into business class.
Unacceptable, totally unacceptable. We see it happen in the corporate world as well. The justification is the men are the world champions and the women aren't. But look, if you want them to perform, you want them to hit the ground running, they need to be as rested as possible when they get there. So I think this is totally unacceptable.
Prue McSween, Carolyn DeRusso, great to see you guys tonight.